But now we have the star of the show. We have a featured speaker. We're lucky to have a guest from faraway Trussville, Alabama. Her name is Kathy Prince. And let me tell you a little bit about her. Kathy Prince lives in a planned community with houses that might look a little familiar to you. They were built in the 1930s during the Great Depression. Kathy has been a resident of Trussville, Alabama for 33 years. She purchased and renovated one of the houses. Doesn't that sound familiar? And it's in the city of Trussville in the Cahaba homestead. And she did that in 1993. Kathy is also a founding member of the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation that was established in 2021 to support the historic neighborhood. And I'd like to have Kathy come up and tell her very interesting story. Kathy?
This is going to make me feel tall, which I'm not. I need to make sure that everyone can hear me okay. Is everyone able to hear? Okay, up a little bit more. Okay, how is it now? Better? Let me get a little closer. Better? All right. I'm not as tall as the previous speakers, but I'll make up for that in passion about my topic. So I'm really pleased to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk to the group. I imagine that most of you don't even know there is such a place as the Cahaba Project in Trussville, Alabama. I think it has been a surprise to a number of people. But I do have it has a mind of its own, doesn't it? Oh, I have no problem with that.
Go ahead and talk among yourselves for a second.
We don't need this, do you? Y'all are tired already, so we need to move on with our presentation. But anyway, I'm so thrilled to be here and have this opportunity. I have a slideshow. I think I'm going to speak a little bit more just from my heart because I already identify with the spirit that I feel in this room because while you may not know it, the same exact history exists outside of Birmingham, Alabama. It was the same year, 1938, I believe, that the Cahaba Project was established as a WPA Works Program Administration government project that allowed for families to move in and have opportunities during the Great Depression, as well as construction people, carpenters and plumbers and electricians, to have work to build the community. So it's the same thing. It's just in a different geographical location. So I have a slideshow here. I'm going to maybe just speak a little bit from the heart though at first, because I think it'll be something you can resonate with. I was going to tell this story at the end, but after having some conversations with some of the people in the room, I think I'll start with this story. I moved into my home in the Cahaba Project in 1993. I was young and unmarried, single female professional with a small little house. And my next door neighbor was someone of the greatest generation. He was, original to the Cahaba Project. And I was of a different generation. He was in his 80s at the time. I was in my 30s. However, I quickly had a little mishap and fell and broke my ankle. So I was at home, as a single person living and trying to make it on my own. My next door neighbor was 80 and he had problems getting around himself. I believe he was in a little scooter. But my next door neighbor, Mr. Tucker, he checked on me every day and he brought me supper and he made sure I was all right, because that's what neighbors do in the Cahaba Project. And so I thought I would lead with that story because I think everyone in this room probably can identify with that feeling of community that sets us apart and makes us do things like have anniversaries and dinners and raise money and have grants. So we're doing the same thing in Trussville, Alabama. All right, so I'm going to move forward a little bit with some of these slides. The pictures that you can see are just, typical scenes around the Cahaba Project. Our history is the same as it is here in Greendale. We were a Great Depression, New Deal resettlement. So everyone is familiar with that. I don't have to explain any of that to you. We were established to bring people out of the Great Depression. Franklin Roosevelt was responsible for this program. And I'm going to move ahead, and you may recognize this face. This is Rex Tugwell. He was head of the Resettlement Administration. He visited here, he visited Trussville, he visited all the communities that were part of the resettlement. So we have that in common. So the name of our community is the Cahaba Homestead. The reason it's named the Cahaba Homestead has to do with our river, the Cahaba River. It runs through central Alabama. You'll see sort of the watershed area there in central Alabama. It's the longest free-flowing river in the state. The headwaters are in the Trussville area, and it's how the Cahaba Project got its name. I think it's probably an Indian name, I'm assuming. Oh, I'm going backwards. All right. So I'm going to explain a little bit about how it came to be. Birmingham was called the Magic City in the 1920s. The steel mills sprung up in the Birmingham area, similar to what was going on in Pittsburgh and that type of thing. In the Trussville area, which is about 15 miles outside of the city of Birmingham, there really wasn't anything there. It was a lot of empty land. There was an abandoned blast furnace. There was a prison and there was a dumping ground for the Birmingham steel mills to come and dump their waste from the iron furnaces that were used to make steel. And this waste material was called slag. And the name that was associated with the area was a slag. They just called it the slag heap. So there was no Trussville. There was no city. There was nothing there at all. But because of its proximity to the Birmingham area, it was looked at by the WPA. Unfortunately, due to the piles and piles of slag, it was clear that this land could never be farmed, but yet it was, in close proximity to Birmingham, and there was a need for middle class and laborers and so forth who had been unemployed to have an opportunity to have housing. And so it was looked at by the WPA and chosen as the site for what is really considered a large suburban experiment. So Rex Tugwell of the WPA saw the potential for a development that would include fairly large lots, because he was envisioning something sort of a hybrid between a metropolitan neighborhood and a rural neighborhood. So the lots were very big, and everyone had a little barn, which doubled as a garage. So back then, people might have one car. So you could park your car. You could also have your chickens in this barn. So it was sort of a little multi-purpose outdoor area and a big yard for like a home garden. So the land that these houses sits on is by modern standards a good bit of land. So here you'll see it was initially called Slag Heap Village due to the slag from the Birmingham steel industry being dumped there. All that slag had to be moved out for the houses to be constructed. So that was another big project that put people to work. So this is a quote from, it's probably, it's from the Birmingham News, or the Birmingham News, yeah. It said, everything here that is needed to make a big city. So what they were saying is there was nothing there, but there was land and there was a need, and there were people in the Birmingham area who needed homes. And there was a river and there was a railroad. And so it became, you know, the site of something to be developed. So this is where the similarities sort of merge with Greendale. It was the same year, 1937, 1938, that the homes began to be constructed. The home architecture is a little bit different from what I see around here in Greendale. You'll see some examples of the homes in the Cahaba project. The homes have either redwood siding, and that redwood came from the Pacific Northwest. Can you imagine today? Because those redwood trees would never be allowed to be harvested. But they do have redwood siding, and it is sturdy, and you cannot destroy these homes. Some of the homes were also made of brick. They all have metal roofs, so they are also permanent roofs. I have my original, almost 90-year-old roof, and when you go to the homeowner's insurance, you know, and they say, how old is your roof? And it's like, well, it's 90 years old. And I, well, don't you need a new one? No, I don't. It has never leaked a drop in 90 years. So yeah, so we have the metal roofs. The interior has heart pine flooring. We have similar to, if you've been, and I was able to go in the Apple Courthouse, so I was so impressed. And I noticed there that the kitchen cabinets were metal and maple countertops. And that's exactly what the original Cahaba Project homes had as well. Yeah, so it was very similar. I found many similarities with the Apple Courthouse. Again, I said there's large lots, detached garages that served as chicken houses, and also park your car there. And I believe the question came up, how are the homes heated? And there are 2 fireplaces to each home, and attached to one is just a regular wood burning fireplace in the living room, but usually in the back of the house, it would be attached to a small potbelly stove for burning coal or wood. I'm not sure how it worked. So there's a little bit of the construction underway in 1938. The rental rates, $14 to $23 per month. So these homes were rented for 10 years. After World War II, the homes came up for sale by the federal government, and the residents were offered a mortgage. It was like a mortgage arrangement from the federal government. So of the 287 families living and renting these homes, almost 100% of these families were able to purchase their home through a mortgage arrangement. So for the first time, many of these families were able to have home ownership. And that's the beauty of what happened during the Depression. It seemed to be, we spent a lot of money on the front end. The government coffers were just poured into our country's infrastructure. But as a result, many good things came out of it. People, were given opportunities that we just don't know if the New Deal had not been put into place, what would have happened in our country. So that's the good news. It became a home ownership opportunity. This shows that the community was a tight-knit community. They developed a newspaper for the community. We did have a cooperative store, kind of a community center. We had a high school in the center of the community. The way our community is laid out is we have a central park. We call it the mall because it is modeled after the mall in Washington, D.C. It's not that big, but it's the same kind of floor plan layout. And then the high school is at one end, and the community center and the library and those types of things that you have here in the village were also part of our community as well. Okay, so this brings us up to the question, if there was no Trussville, Alabama, there was only a slag heap that was turned into a resettlement village, what happened as time went on? So at the end of World War II, it was decided that, maybe we need to incorporate the town because it had grown and there were stores and there were various things around there. So the residents, which was primarily the Cahaba Project at the time, I think the population, I don't know what the population was in 1947, but it wasn't a lot. So the residents voted to incorporate as a city. They gave the name of the city to be Trussville, named after a landowner who had moved there generations before. And his name was Warren Truss. And, he was long gone, but that name had been in the community for a long time. So not only did people assume ownership of their homes in 1947, the town was incorporated, and then, we moved on into the future. So what has happened over the generations since that time is, the city of Birmingham has grown and grown and grown, and it has, we've had the interstate system, and Trussville is now at the intersection of I-59 and the Beltway, I-459, and so as a result, it's the demand for these homes or the demand to move into the Trussville area as a suburb has really exploded. The population of Trussville in 1986, when the Historical Society, I think, was founded around that time, the population was 4,000 people. And today the population of Trussville, Alabama is 28,000. So you can see the challenges that our community is facing. During the past few decades, we've had some ups and downs. There has been an interest. We have had like a neighborhood organization that has existed for quite a while, but it's never been very cohesive. The Historical Society really focused more on the whole community and not just the historic neighborhood. But there was interest around 2006 by our city council to put the neighborhood on the National Register of Historic Places. And so we were put on the register in 2008, I believe. a group from Trussville went to Washington, D.C. and actually collected a lot of documents out of the archives in Washington and brought them back, copied them and brought them back to our local public library. So there has always been a certain degree of interest, even outside of the neighborhood. So there you can see in 2006, we were added to the National Register of Historic Places. Unfortunately, what kind of happened, I have hinted at, as Birmingham engulfed our community, the demand for housing has exploded. These houses are now 90 years old, and they have tiny closets, and they don't have a big great room, and they don't have, whatever modern house, a big garage. They don't have that. You can see here some of the architecture. They're tiny, they're cottages. So the lots are big, but the houses are small. So there is a temptation that if grandma has a house here and grandson now wants to live in grandma's house, but doesn't quite want grandma's cottage feel, so let's just think maybe we'll just tear it down, right? We'll just tear it down. It's a nice big lot. It's close to Birmingham. It's in a good community, and we can build $1 million house there. Yeah, and that is what has happened in our community. We've lost about 7 to 8, I'm guessing, original structures demolished completely to the ground over the last 5 to 10 years. So we are trying to discourage that. We are trying to make our community aware that having something unique like a historic district is of value to everyone in the community. And so we formed a group in about 2021, and we called ourselves the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the community about ways to, value what we have here in Trussville. So it was my idea as part of that group to collect some old photos and begin to, bring that to the newer residents who had moved in. One of the things when I moved into my house in 1993, I noted that many of the homeowners had an old vintage photograph from the tax records that was taken as people's houses were assessed for their property values. And so you can see the image there of the way the houses looked in 1937. I think they were actually, the photos might have been closer to 1940. There is one particular little house there with attached to my Facebook post, and that happens to be my house at 109 Magnolia Street in Trussville, and it was taken in 1940, and then a picture that represents how it looks today. So I posted this on Facebook, and I put a challenge out to our little community of 287 houses, and said, "Do you have a photo like this?" And thinking that people would say, "Oh yeah," just getting some people engaged in the idea. Well, a lot more people said, "No, I did not know you could get this old photo, and can you help me? I'd like to have one." And so this is what began a series of, it was kind of a public relations effort, I guess you might say. I offered to go to the Birmingham Public Library archives and collect photos for anyone who wanted a photo of their house at no charge. So I was thinking I might get 10 or 12 people. Does anyone want to take a guess how many photos I ended up collecting for the neighborhood? Oh, I see someone, a naysayer over here. No, I collected 120 photos. Yeah, so the interest is there, and it spoke volumes to our city leaders who we are trying desperately to convince that, there is still a spark in the city of Trussville for the history and the value of what that community meant to the founding of the city of Trussville. And so that spirit is still alive, and we, I don't take credit for it all, because our president has been fantastic, and our local historian, who I believe Ted and Mary Manella has met both of them on their trip to Trussville a few years back. So they have spearheaded so many great projects that has really brought an appreciation of the Cahaba project to the greater Trussville community in fantastic ways. So I could not be more optimistic about the future of the Cahaba project. One of the things that we did as part of Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation was we established an annual Heritage Days. It began in 2023. Our president is a fabulous gallery represented artist in Alabama, and she had a great idea to enlist artists to come and paint in the neighborhood. So we have a group called the Alabama Plein Air. They come in, they paint outdoors. They painted all the homes. They put the paintings into a cell. We had home tours. We had a group from Gee's Bend, and I don't know who knows about Gee's Bend, but that's a New Deal sort of community in South Alabama, in the rural area. They have a group of quilt makers that came and did a demonstration. We had music, home tours, and this has become an annual event. So this was a great idea and has created just a surge of renewed interest in our neighborhood. Here's a slide showing some of the architectural plans, because there's only a limited few. Most are cottage style that you'll see there along the bottom or on the right side top. That's how most of the houses are. There are some that are 2-story, and I've seen this roof style here in Greendale as well. And then we do have a few that are duplexes, but we don't have any of the multifamily homes, but some that are duplex homes. This is the mission of the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation: to support through education, outreach, and civic involvement such things that promote, perpetuate, and enhance the value of this community as a historic district designated on the National Register of Historic Places. And we are getting there. We have great hopes for encouraging homeowners to not tear the houses down. If you must renovate, do so in the character and the architectural style that has been a part of our city for so long. So just in closing, I feel like it's fitting that I'm speaking to your group here today as part of the anniversary celebration. Heritage Days is going to become our annual celebration. One of the members of the Cahaba Homestead Heritage Foundation is a historian, reporter, writer, and podcaster, and he loves our neighborhood so much that he wrote a book about it. So we now have a book that details all the information about our development in Trussville. And I'm going to close with a quote from Gary Lloyd, the author of the book. He says that, it's important to find ways to celebrate history, such as this 50th anniversary. It's very important. If something as significant as an anniversary is just skipped over, the memory of what that day means can fade in people's minds. It's why anniversaries must be celebrated to show not only how far we have come, but to reflect on where we started. If history is not kept alive and in the forefront of a community's collective mind, it is relegated to the darkness of archival boxes. And I thought that was a brilliant statement by Gary, my friend. So I think that's fitting for what you have here. You have done such a fabulous job of honoring and you know, valuing what you have. And we don't have the ability to do any Airbnb or you know, authentic renovation type projects because Airbnb is prohibited in the city of Trussville. So we hope that we would change that. We have a few longtime residents who have meticulously kept their homes in character and not done a lot to significantly change them over the years. And I can think of two right now that would become absolutely a gem as rental for our foundation in the future. And we would love for our city to honor that and look at ways to do what you do here in Greendale so well. So I think I've covered most of the bases. Has everyone been able to hear me okay? Okay, good. So I would like to open it up for any questions that anyone has about our neighborhood. Yes. Oh, it's incredibly walkable. The lots are a little over a half an acre on average. Ted and Mary came to the story of how this connection, I saw Sally Chadwick was here. So there's a chapter about Greendale in our book, chapter 61. So you must read it. When we established this organization in 2021, we said we've got to reach out and see how other WPA, New Deal, Depression era communities like ours, what are they doing and how are they supporting what they're doing in their town? And so we reached out, and I think Gary, who wrote this book, he reached out to Sally Chadwick. Through Sally, we connected with Ted and Mary Manella, and Ted and Mary Manella decided to come to Trussville and visit. So they can speak to what they saw there anytime, feel free. But we do have a central park, and the houses are laid out in a grid around that park. The school is at one end, and the rest is just walkable, but adjacent to the downtown area. The downtown area now has an entertainment district with breweries. I'm sure I don't have to tell anyone in Milwaukee about breweries, right? So we do have some breweries and a music venue, and it's all walkable from the Cahaba project. So it's a very nice walkable neighborhood. Yes. Yes. It is a mixture. For the most part, people have honored the architecture, kept the front-facing part of the home as original as possible. It's not 100%, but for the most part, it's very intact as a neighborhood. Yeah, no, the land is flat. We have crawl spaces where a possum can get into and tear up your HVAC. I believe someone in this room might know about that. That happened to me. Are there basements? Oh, in Birmingham, absolutely, because Birmingham is actually very hilly and there's a mountain in Birmingham. So there, yeah. Right, the land was flat, flat as it had been cleared. I mean, there was, like I said, it was a slag heap. It was a dumping ground, and it's right along the Cahaba River, and it's fairly flat. But There was no need for basements. Very similar, small rooms. We have transoms above each room. And that's because it's hot in the South and they wanted airflow. So we have big ceiling fans, transoms over the rooms. It's very similar, not a lot different. Yes, it's a great question. You know, they had a common store, and they you know, they had chickens, they had a garden, I'm sure they had a market. But there are dry goods and those kind of things, I believe, came to the common store that was there in the center of the community. Yeah, it was. Well, there was a building. It's now called Heritage Hall, and it was an original community store. Mm-hmm. Yes, so I'm calling it the Cahaba River. It's actually the headwaters of the Cahaba River, which is a much bigger river as it flows south towards it. Ultimately ends up in Mobile Bay, but in the Trussville area, it's really not a very big river. So it's really the only waterway, but it's small there. People get in, put their canoes in there, and then you canoe through Birmingham. You come out the other side of Birmingham and you're in some of the most beautiful scenery. If anyone's ever heard of the Cahaba lilies, they are a rare water lily, and they grow in the springtime in Shelby County and Bibb County in central Alabama. It's just a very beautiful part of Alabama. No, we don't have any row houses like what you're describing, where they're connected, townhouse kind of style. They're mostly individual cottages. A few are 2-story larger, and we have a few duplexes that surround the mall. I mean, we've done it for like 3 or 4 years now. Yes, we do. April. So I would love to see each and every one of you. We would make you so welcome. So yes. Well, everyone here has a cell phone, right? So you can all look at our website. It's called cahabaheritage.org. And on that website, I'll have probably about 200 photos, both current photos and vintage photos are there, as well as interviews with Ted and Mary Manella, and interviews with all kinds of different videos that have been made through our organization. And we have finally gotten the attention of our state funding, and we have gotten about $150,000 in grants, mostly from the state of Alabama. Those have allowed us to fund things like restoration of some original street lamps, building of marker stone gateways at the 4 corners of our neighborhood, a daffodil trail at the elementary school. And we have even more ideas as we approach, what will soon be our 100th anniversary, as it will be for Greendale. We are at about 90 years, I believe now. And so we're already planning for Cahaba 100, a big celebration for the neighborhood. Do we have what? Catholic churches. We do have we have one Catholic church in Trussville. Yes, we do. No, we have a variety of churches, but not any within the neighborhood. Really good question. And the folks back in Trussville who may be watching this need to know that it would be a great thing, but it is up to our city council. It is on their desk. We are waiting patiently. Thank you so much.
Well, I certainly want to thank Kathy for giving us a look at her little planned community, and it makes me want to go to Trussville and check out the Cahaba project. Maybe for their 100th, we can get a group of us to come down. That would be really fun. Kathy came to Greendale on Thursday, so I had the opportunity to spend part of the day with her yesterday, taking her on a tour of Greendale of what I thought was interesting, and of course, taking her through our house. And she saw some similarities there. Both their houses and ours were built by the federal government using very good materials. And we went past the biggest original that I know in Greendale that housed 11 Glens. So she saw that. And I was glad I pointed you out to her today. I said she was one of them that lived in that original with 11 kids, which I find remarkable. But this was a wonderful talk. I'm just curious, when I moved to Greendale, I thought the only planned communities built by the government during the Great Depression were the Greenbelt communities, and I was shocked to hear that there were other ones. How many of you didn't know that there were other, it's just amazing. I was really surprised, and now that I know it, my family went to Gulf Shores and we could have stopped in Trussville on the way home and visited. I'm so glad that Ted and Mary had the interest to stop there and take a look, and they brought information back, and that we connected and had Kathy visiting with us for our 50th.